what would you?
Yeah, let's
tell us?
explain that. Let's
Yeah,
explain
just
that.
tell me tell all of us, what would be your top priorities? I think you sort of hinted at it, but I'm curious.
I did. My biggest priority would be, and it's all a combination, it's COVID recovery. And with COVID recovery comes fair wages for people, making sure that people women especially get equal pay for equal work. You know, a lot of women had to leave the workforce during COVID to take care of their children, to take care of their elderly parents. We've got to get these women back in the workforce, but we've got to get them back in there with the pay that they deserve. We got to also make sure we strengthen our workforce by giving people paid family and medical leave. A whole lot of people had to leave the workforce because they didn't have leave, so they had no choice. They had to lose their jobs because they were sick and had to take care of themselves or take care of somebody else. So all of that is kind of tied in together. But one of my kind of pet peeves or pet projects that I've worked on for the past 7 years is early childhood education.
Yeah.
And included in that, you know, I think everybody talks about K through 12, but we need to start from the cradle. You know, we're talking about by the time a child gets to be 3 years old, 5 years old, things have already formed, and we need to start early with them. From somebody who has worked in the Department of Correction, I know we always talk about the school to prison pipeline. It's not school, it starts before school. Because if they don't get that early start, if they go to kindergarten or pre-K and they're not ready, they usually don't have a chance to catch up. So included in early childhood education is quality, affordable, accessible childcare. And that's so important for women to get back in the workforce, for all working families, not just women, men as well. So that's something that I'm really going to work on, and specifically around that, Nancy. Governor Northern created a position in the Department of Education that was just focused on early childhood education, but it was only funded through his time in office. So I know there was a bill this past General Assembly to at least refund that position, but I'd like to make that a permanent position in the Department of Education and not just do that, but create a department. Because if we don't get them on the front end, then we're gonna see them in corrections on the back end. So that's one of the things that I really, really wanna work with. Marnie?
Do you see a possibility for the state to fund early childhood education? State-run daycare?
I don't know about state-run daycare, but I do see the opportunity for them to do universal pre-K. And when I say pre-K, I'm talking about 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And so I think that's much better than just childcare because they're actually being taught.
Well, when I said childcare, I meant pre-K.
Oh yeah, and right now, you know, to be real honest, and that's how I always am, I think people talk about wanting to do that. I don't think the General Assembly is where they need to be with funding that, but we can start chipping away at that. And some of the ways that I would hope to start doing that is they have so many slots now in education, in the public education side, but I'd like to increase funding for that in the public education side as well as the non-public education, which would be in some of the larger daycares where they actually have slots that are paid for. So we can't get universal, we need to start chipping away by adding more slots. Make sense?
Funding.
Yes. And Pat.
Maureen.
Yes. Sorry. You were going to tell us a story about a child care issue that you had to take care of during COVID.
Well, we are fortunate that our youngest son lives here in town, and he has now 21-month-old twin granddaughters. So they were born in September, preemies. So our plan was when Mom went back, their parents are both teachers. Mom went back to work in January, so us, Scott and I, and then the other grandparents were going to share childcare for 6 months. So that was till June. And then in the middle of this, COVID was there. So we got through June, and then, you know, school had collapsed in March, and working from home and figuring out, you know, virtual teaching. Joe was upstairs teaching virtually in what was his old bedroom in our house because we had more space than he did in his home in Deer Run. And so in the summer, we looked at the other grandparents and we said, you know, we didn't want these babies to go to daycare. You know, we didn't know what daycare would look like. And we thought, well, we're all stuck at home, so we just have watched the babies now till the end of June. But it was, you know, my husband and I had both retired. This was not, you know, we were thrilled to have the girls and so fortunate we had them to brighten our days. But this wasn't our retirement, and it wasn't the other grandparents' retirement, and it wasn't the parents' view of starting their family and, you know, what they envisioned for their children in daycare either. But 2 teacher salaries, and it was tough. We were thankful. I'm glad they were here and we could do that. But it's been a long year and a half for us and the other grandparents.
And for Maureen and her family, they were fortunate to be able to have those
Absolutely.
resources. But think about the lots and lots of families who don't have those resources.
Absolutely.
And putting a child in daycare, one child, not 2 kids, in daycare is like paying a semester in college. I mean, so the price is just so exorbitant to get quality, good childcare. So that's a big issue, and we need to start working on things like that. That's really important. And I could like go on and on and on about how all of that's kind of interconnected. But